Hello and welcome to my first video with you folks on InDesign. So InDesign is really used for layout design, and it is a place where you can put photographs and illustrations and text and all these different aspects of a design. And I'm going to start by creating a new file. I am going to use inches, which is the measurement that most of us are familiar with. So I had previously used this postcard size, so it automatically showed up again. So 4.25 by 6 is a typical postcard size. I have facing pages turned off. So this is just a single postcard, so I don't want it's not a multi-page document, which is what facing pages helps us manage. So down here for margins, if I want all my margins to be the same, this lock here, I'm going to click that and it changes them all to be the same number. And then if I change one, it changes them all, and I can click it if I want to change one. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to scroll down here further, and I'm going to show you the bleed. So if you want a bleed, which means a solid color or a picture, anything goes off the edge of your page, you're going to add a bleed, and the standard is 0.125, which is an eighth of an inch on each side. And again, this lock is here so that they're all even on each side, and I'm going to say create. So now I have this vertical postcard, which I may decide that I actually would like it to be horizontal. So even after I've created this document, I can go back and change that. So that would be under File, because it has to do with the overall size and shape of this document. I'm going to go to Document Setup. I'm going to change the orientation to horizontal here, and then I'll say OK. This red line around here is my bleed. Anything that I want to bleed, say for example, I'm going to just create a box here, say I want a border across the top that I fill with the color. Here's a color. You could just use and grab a color. So what I need is for that to go off the edge and be an eighth of an inch on all three of those sides. So just by putting in the bleed, it's not going, this line, it just shows you where it needs to be. But just because I push the button bleed, it's not just automatically going to create the bleed. It creates the guideline, and I have to physically move that over there. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a text box. So I'm going to go and get the text tool, and I'm going to drag this out, and I'm going to put some text here. So Postcard Design. Okay, so I'm going to spell this correctly, add spaces in here. Okay. So this text right now, I'm going to select it, and it says Minion Pro. That is the default text style, and it's 12 points over 14.4 points. So that means that if I were to hit return for each one of these, the space in between these words is generated or managed by this 14.4, which is our leading. So I'm going to select this text, and I'm going to make it larger than 12 points. Notice that this leading changes, and so it's when you see those parentheses around it, that is the default. But I can override that, so I can manage it, and notice how when I bring it closer together, a smaller number, it brings it closer together. Okay, so this text style is the regular weight of Minion Pro. If I click here, I can also get a bold. So this particular font has bold and regular. There are lots of different styles that I can choose. I'm going to select here and you see it shows me the text that I've typed in. And if you see the TT here, that means it's a true type font, and that font is is on this computer. So it's isolated to this computer. The ones that have this picture of a cloud here, these are fonts that I downloaded from the Adobe cloud. And so they will show up on other computers that you are accessing your Adobe programs through. Okay, but if you go to a different computer, it might not have Menlo, or it might not have Microsoft Sans attached to it. Okay, so if you're going to be jumping from computer to computer, you may want to stick with the font that is a Adobe font. Okay, so notice this font here is all caps. This font only comes in all caps, and this one has upper and lower case. Notice this Menlo says 4. There are 4 different variations in this font family. If I go to Marion, there are 3 different ones. And Meta Pro has 16. So this has a lot of different variety here. Now, some of these fonts like Menlo that has 4, there may actually be more versions of this font, but they're not loaded on this computer. So I'm using just what's loaded right now. So if I have these, I would select them, go back in here and change it to a different font. Let me see, what was I just looking at? Meta Pro. So I'm going to change this to Meta Pro. And so then when I select this, I can see that that's bold, but I could make one black. This could be bold, and this one I am going to make book. So you can see the different styles. Okay, so you can see here this pink line is my margin. The red line outside of the page is my bleed. So the white is my postcard size. So I'm going to be tidy. I like to keep my boxes fairly tight in against themselves, and I like to align it with the margins. Okay, so now I'm going to add an image. So here's my text box. I'm going to go up to File, Place, to add an image. And I have an image set. I just knew where there was one. One moment, under Teaching here. Sample. I have some lovely images that I recently was taking in the park. It's been beautiful here, so I'm going to open and place an image. So if I just click and let it go, it ends up being 100%. If I click and drag, notice it's keeping the proportions of my image automatically when I keep dragging that there. So there's my photograph that I'm adding here. Now, if I'm going to want this photograph to bleed off the edge, I would make sure I went to my bleed line, or I can leave it centered in my image here. I'm going to zoom out a moment. So the thing I want to show you about managing photos is you can see there's a blue line around here, and when I am on this black arrow, which is the selection tool, I can move the blue line, which will go and crop my image, and if I exceed, it will show white around it, which is different than when I just dropped the picture in the first time. So when I dropped that image in, it was keeping it all aligned, but once I've unclicked it, it stays this size, and I can move in and crop it or pull it out and make this box bigger. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here for a moment. I'm going to switch to this white arrow, which is the direct selection tool. Notice how when I hover here, you see this gold or brown line. That marks the my image, where my image ends. So if I move this around, it's like the blue line I'm going to click back here, get the blue line, is a window cut in the page. I'm going to unclick, go back here and grab this one, and this is the image so that I'm moving it around in that opening here. So I can make this, the percentage of this image, I can change that up here. So you see it's 6.3333, and if I click this bottom arrow, it shrinks it in 1% increments. Or I can go up here and I can make it, say, 50%, which is very large now. And then I can go back down to 25, and you can see that this image actually was quite a large image, since 6, I just put in the number 6 and hit return, is what's filling up the space. So that's just 6% of the original size. So that's a very large photograph. So this is how you manage a photograph. This is how you manage text. And here is where I've added a color box. So the other thing that I should teach you right now is how to change that color. So if I go into this color here, I can change that CMY color. And by moving these sliders around, you can see it changes the percentage of cyan, the percentage of magenta, the percentage of yellow, or the percentage of black. I can also grab a spot on this bar, and depending on where I grab it, it will show me that percentage of CMYK. So CMYK are colors that would be printed, and we've touched on that this is going to be a printed postcard. That's why we've added a bleed, because it's printed and it needs to exceed. It's different color parameters and different things that we would do if we were doing digital. So we're going to just stick talking about printed right now. So now that I have changed this color, I am going to go to swatches. So this is the color palette. I'm going to click here, which is swatches. And so you can expand a bar by, you see surrounding dots here. You can pull down and open a box. You can quickly expand with the double arrow here. You can close, open, and we have a hamburger here, which gives you a lot more information for many of these windows. So say I was really happy with this color that I've got here, and I want to make it a swatch. So I can go up to my hamburger and say new swatch. So I can save this color the way it is, or I can go in here and make an adjustment. So say I want it to be this pale pink. So you see 0, 60% magenta, 30% yellow, and 31 black. I say OK, and that color formula is the title of that color. I'm going to do that again, where I am going to go to the hamburger, say new color swatch. I can change this formula, and you see here it says name with the color value, and we're using process, which means cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So I can change these colors, say OK. And so once I have a color in here, if I want to change it, I can double click. So this blue, which came standard, I can go and click this. Say I want it to be more of a turquoise. I'm going to pull out the magenta and add some more yellow. And I've made this color a turquoise. So when I say OK, it changes the formula here and it changes the color here. Okay, so if I delete a color, if I delete this yellow, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Let me unclick, because I was clicked here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to delete the yellow. Nothing happens. If I click this turquoise and try to delete it, it says we've already got this is used somewhere. So I can choose another color in my swatches to replace that. So if I pick this one and I say OK, it deletes that turquoise, but it needs to fill it with a different color. So these are the basics right now. We've added color, we've added typography, and we've added a photograph.